All right, what's up, y'all? This is another freestyle stream. I'm gonna be doing this every single week, and we're just gonna be discussing like a bunch of random stuff, on these type of streams. Like for those of you who are new to this channel, and if you want, give it a like, dislike. It doesn't matter to me. I'm not too insecure about either or, but just keep it respectful, in terms of the chat and everything like that, because like we're still starting out, and seeing like how this thing goes. Stagnated state where nothing is coming out for like the next couple of months. And even if it does come out in the next couple of months, we still don't know like whether the format is going to be the same for the sport. Like, are we going to see it like in a studio format? Are we going to see it still in the stadiums without any audience whatsoever? However, what up, Unbiased? Oh, you were going to go live, man? Yeah, we could chop it up for a little bit and then like you could go live for right now, you know, but it's all good. It's all good. Yeah, and I also put the link in the Hangouts, so maybe like somebody like Hamed will come on or anyone. But yeah, man, the format is gonna be completely different, man. Completely different from here on out. But for right now, like we just gotta cope with it. You know what I mean? Like, whatever. Oh shit. Yeah, my bad, guys. My bad. Like my Wi-Fi was acting up all of a sudden because I'm probably like outside my house right now in the front. So yeah. What up, Hamed?
Yeah, bro. You still there, is it?
Yeah, I'm already here, man. Like I just had some
What
issues
happened?
with the Wi-Fi.
Oh, I thought you had to drop off. I was wondering.
Yeah,
Yeah, how's it going?
all good, all good. I was listening to that live yesterday, man. Not the one that you guys were talking about between you and Smoke, but the other one between Dan and Jalik about Tommy Hearns versus Floyd Mayweather.
I missed it. I heard a bit of it. What did they say?
Oh no, that Jalik was going for Floyd Mayweather, and Dan was going for Tommy Hearns, and they were arguing about like the resumes between them. Like Dan's main point was that Tommy Hearns had more than just power, man. Like he had the jab, he had everything going for him, and like based on the Sugar Ray Leonard fight, that that's the blueprint for him to beat Floyd. Because he had that stature and he was beating Ray Leonard on the outside. Meanwhile, Jalik's main points were comparisons like to Sharva Mitchell and stuff like that in order to determine like whether Floyd would struggle with Tommy Hearns or not. Like based on like what skill they have and this that, and the third. But it was back and forth. But I thought I agree with Dan.
I don't like doing fantasy matchups. I don't really like. I listen to a lot of podcasts, boxing, whatever channels, stuff like that. But I don't really. I like to stay away from stuff like. I don't. I don't mind if people are talking here and there about rankings and the odd free fight, but I don't like it when people do it so familiar. Like I don't know how it's hard to compare. Like someone like Mayweather, I don't think going by the guys he's fought, I don't think you could say he beat any one of those um, guys. What's it called? Duran, Leonard, or Hearns. But if someone feels they will, I'm not gonna really begrudge him or argue too much. I used to think he could beat one or two of those guys. I don't feel the same way now because if you look at the guys he's beat, a lot of the guys he's beat, I don't think were as good or better than. Obviously, Hagler's too big, so let's not even go there. But the other three who were about his same size, or the guys that fought at the same weight class he fought, I just can't see. The only guy that I think that he fought was. Maybe you could say De La Hoya. That was probably one of his best wins, but I don't think De La Hoya is better than those guys as well. That was still a good win, and De La Hoya was slightly older, but at the same time, De La Hoya was a lot bigger. So I don't really I really give Mayweather a lot of credit than a lot of other people because I still think going into that fight that was like a 50-50 fight in a lot of people's eyes. But apart from De La Hoya, I can't think of many other guys. I'm talking about a welterweight around about that he beat guys like Hins or Leonard. I just think those guys are way too big and they just have size and they'd have too much advantages. And if he fights him in the prime, but I just can't see him beating him. I think Mayweather was probably more suited in his own. He was probably a better super featherweight. At the same time, I would say the same with Duran as well. I don't think he beat Duran because I don't think he beat anyone on that level, lightweight. And Duran was probably arguably the greatest, if not the second greatest lightweight. I'd say probably the greatest. Some people might have him one or two, whatever. But it's hard to argue, even at welterweight. I know he beat guys like Cotto, Pacquiao, a lot of these guys, but he beat them. I don't know if it's his fault or whatever. He did beat them when they weren't really in the prime. At the same time, you could say Mayweather wasn't in his prime as well. But if, I don't know, it's hard to engage. A lot of the guys he beat at welterweight, I don't think you can compare, even if they were in their prime. Apart from maybe Pacquiao, you can't really compare those guys like to Ray Leonard and Hearns and Duran. Like these guys are especially Duran. These guys are one of the greatest. Like, you could argue top 5, 10 all time. Like, I
Yeah,
don't
I
know.
see.
I think it's what's the word? I think it's just nonsensical. Those arguments, man. Like, unless you could get a time machine, you'll never know. My opinion, I don't think he beats those guys.
Yeah, I see. What's up, Phil, man? I'm pretty sure I already got your thoughts on like the whole idea of fantasy matchups like in the last stream. So, uh, we're probably gonna go like into that area of like comparing the old fighters to the different like to the age of fighters that Floyd Mayweather fought, like in the early 2000s, sometimes like in the early 2010s and all that, how different they were from uh the 80s welterweights, because like it seems like I see a lot of variety like in the 80s welterweights and even the 90s, you know what I mean? Like in
Yeah,
terms of like physical specimens and everything like that. And not only were they physical specimens, but like they can actually box and they have fundamentals. Like, and that was a point that struck me as well, man. Like, that you mentioned that they had great fundamentals back then.
Yeah, I think, fundamentally those guys were a lot more, um, fundamental than a lot of the fighters are today. You know, it's kind of like when you stepped into your local gym or your local YMCA, back then you had a guy in there and he started, he took it from scratch and it's like everybody had the same initial blueprint. You understand what I'm saying? And then
Hmm.
as fighters advanced, they created their own styles. But for the most part, fundamentally, everybody was kind of, you know, right there with one another. You understand what I'm saying? Of course, guys had more skill, but guys would come out, stand behind the jab, throw straight punches, and it wasn't a lot of I think just to now, a lot of fights are focused on how people's style is. He does a shoulder roll, Philly shell. He's a, it wasn't so much that back then, although you did have fighters that did it. But fundamentally, man, those guys were just, I mean, those guys were serious, man. And I just think that's one of the main advantages those fighters have on the newer fighters because you really had people that dedicated a lot of time and really put a lot of emphasis on fundamentals. It wasn't very many people coming into boxing that says, "Hey, yo, I picked up boxing and I'm 19 years old." Man, back then, if you were 19 years old, you picking up boxing, man. You get in that ring, you liable to get killed, man. You know. So at the end of the day, you know how I feel
Benitez
about
was a
cross
champion.
generation.
Benitez, I was
Yeah,
just
you
gonna
know
say
how.
sorry. Benitez was a champion at 17. That's the
Yeah,
youngest ever. I don't think anyone's come close to breaking that record.
but I
Yeah, I
agree with
mean,
Phil, man.
yeah.
Yeah, man. Like when you were talking about like the whole fundamentals and everything, like these fighters had a strong foundation. Like they already had like speed, they already had power, but they wanted to focus more so on the foundation. That way they have like a better delivery system, like for everything that they did, offensively and defensively, like and they kind of like dropped as soon as like after the 90s ended, I mean, you still had them fighters, like Pernell Whitaker. I think he could have fought in the 80s back then. But like fighters today, man, like they're too busy trying to create their own identity, like they want to try to focus on something else rather than the fundamentals, man. Like they want to try to be something else that's fundamentally incorrect, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
You know who I
they were a
blame
lot
for that?
more active as well.
And I tell you though, you know who I blame for that, right? Um, and don't get me wrong, it's going to be, it's not going to be anybody else that's probably going to do it like this, but I blame Roy Jones for that. A lot of that
Yeah.
stuff, man, because he defined every fundamental rule in boxing, right? And he was super duper successful at doing it, and he looked great doing it. I mean, even Pernell Whitaker a lot of times define basic fundamentals because he was so slick. But
Yeah.
but the same sentence, he was still a very very fundamental fighter. As far as from a defensive aspect, you understand what I'm saying? So but man, a guy like Roy Jones, man, when you grow up, and a lot of these young guys, that's in their 30s and their 20s and stuff like that, that's what they grew up watching was Roy Jones Jr. A lot of those guys never seen, somebody like Sugar Ray or Marvin Hagler or Duran. They didn't see those guys. They saw Roy Jones and guys like that. So I mean, at the end of the day, you only could, develop your own style based on, who you watch. But I think it just goes back to who was in the gyms teaching these guys how to fight during that particular time because even now it's just so hard to get up and say, what, I think I want to learn how to box. Well, the nearest gym for me is 35 minutes. It's back then there was gyms on every corner. Back then you could walk into your local YMCA and you would have somebody in there that really knew what they were talking about. So I think that's another reason why a lot of fundamentals have been lost in the smoke.
Yeah, I agree, man. Like the early 2000s, believe it or not, man, like the whole culture was basically built around like reflexes, like you know how Roy Jones uh partaked in that movie The Matrix and all of that kind of stuff, like those type of stuff like intrigued people a lot, man. Like, and then as soon as you saw Pernell Whitaker, like at the end of the '90s and in the early 2000s, man, like you said, like a lot more fighters started to try to practice all of these reflexes and stuff like that. And then even till this day, man, with like guys like Floyd Mayweather, they would try to practice the shoulder roll and execute it horribly, man. Like they tried to do like a pull counter and only to get hit by a straight right hand right on time. You know what I mean? What up, unbiased?
What up,
Hey,
Tyson? What's going on?
it's funny because it's true. Like, like prime example, Anthony Yard. Why does Anthony Yard do the shoulder roll? Like, like, dude, you're terrible at this. Please stop. Seriously.
Actually, I don't think we are that bad at it. I think Tabiti, that dude, like,
Oh man,
Oh yeah,
Tabiti's trash at it.
that was
Yeah,
horrible, man.
yeah. I mean, a lot of these guys shouldn't be
Nah,
doing.
yo, Yard is bad.
No,
Yard,
he's
Yard,
bad.
Shoulder
He's
bad.
roll.
bad.
He's
Yard is bad.
Yeah.
He's
terrible
bad.
at that. He
There's
just
a lot
walks
of guys
around with
that
his. You break it up, man.
No, I'm saying like Yard. I think his defense versus Kovalev, certain points, I was like, oh, okay, that's nice. Like I could see his potential, but Tabiti, I mean, nah, he should
Defense.
throw
He
that
didn't
shit
have a
away.
defense. He was getting hit. It was more to do with his chin. He showed his. He was getting hit that well. Like that's shoulder
No,
roll is meant to
He
be.
was slipping some of Kovalev's work and using his
I don't
shoulder
know,
here and there,
like
but
I remember watching
so.
that fight. That guy's getting hit for about. I thought he won about 1 or 2 rounds, and maybe we could give him maybe
Man,
2 or 3, whatever. But he was getting hit a lot, like with
No,
jabs,
I think you're
right hands.
misconstruing what I'm saying. I'm not saying that he won the fight at all at any point in the fight. What I am saying is he actually has potential with the shoulder roll. I could see him developing it better because he showed me like glimpses of like, oh, okay, I see what you're doing. But like Tabiti, he's just like
it's
horrible
like a
with it.
cruiserweight AB, man. Believe it or not. Now that I think about it,
But Yard is flat-footed. Like that's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, Brona, same thing with him. Like just because you slip 1 or 2 shots, like it just for some people it don't work.
yeah.
Brito
As soon
tried
as you
doing
take away
it.
the shoulder roll defense, man, like they are relegated to like a high guard, like low volume and everything.
Yep. Especially when you pump that jab as much as like a Kovalev did. Like he
Hmm.
used that shit to his advantage. Kovalev, he pumped the
Yeah,
jab.
to the
Tabiti would
Even
try
both
shoulders
to,
and.
people's, man.
uh, yeah. Yard would try to
Uh,
lean and do that shoulder roll shit, and then Kovalev would come to the side and land that right hand or pump the jab again. So it's if you're not good at
yeah.
it, bro,
The
you shouldn't
only
do it.
guys I think good at it were Mayweather, James Tony, obviously before. There was someone else. I forgot. I'm pretty sure there was someone else who was good with it.
Floyd Senior was pretty good with it.
Oh no, after Mayweather, I was this.
Nikolai Lucchini, however the fuck you say his last name, he was actually pretty good with the shoulder roll here and there. He used it sometimes, and then you had Duran. Duran would kind of use it a little bit, but not like how Floyd used it or James Toney, but he'd use it to kind of get on the inside a bit.
Yeah, but he
Yeah,
doesn't like to have his forearm like around his stomach, like to cover the body. He would just like have
Yeah.
like a low guard, basically.
Yep.
I thought Fury did it okay.
Yeah, Fury. There you go. That's the other dude. Fury does it.
There's
Yeah.
someone else. I'm pretty sure in America. I don't
Devin
know. Was
Haney.
it good?
I think
Guzman?
um I mean,
Mhm.
I'm not going to say that this guy does the shoulder roll all the time, but I've seen him do it on numerous occasions, and he's pretty good at it. Is Laura? I've seen Laura do it. Even from being a southpaw, I've seen him do it, and he's had some success with it. I mean, it's several guys that can do it in spurts, right? But when you talk about somebody mastering it, right? When we go and we talk about Yard, we talk about Tabiti, these guys' main course of action is defensively is to try to do the shoulder roll. I think some guys can do it in spurts, but nobody can do it just like a Floyd Mayweather or like James Jones. I mean,
Yo,
I tried.
Phil, what do you think about Devin Haney right now? Do you like the way he's developing it, or he should, switch it up?
well,
He hasn't fought it.
I tell you what, man, I gotta a lot of people are not gonna like this, but I'm not super high on Devin Haney right now, and it's not because he's not a good fighter. You know, I just think that at this point in his career, I've seen he has developed a lot with over the last 2 years. I will say that, but I mean, my only gauge is just the opponents that he's going to get.
I
Not
agree.
saying
That's true.
against
That's true.
some trash guys, but I do see some advancement in his skill level. But at the end of the day, I would like to see him again. I'm not as high on him as everybody else is, but I do think he's a very talented fighter. But me personally, a fighter that I think is right now, I mean, way before his time, is Shakur Stevens. I think this guy's ridiculous. I mean, I'm more excited about him than I am Devin Haney.
You know who we didn't even mention, or maybe you guys did and I didn't catch it, but Canelo's shoulder roll is actually pretty damn good too
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah, the way that he slips the punches and everything like that. But the thing about the shoulder roll, man, like it's basically not for everybody. You know what I mean? Like a lot of fighters really got to stop using that a lot more frequently. Like they got to develop like other styles to emulate from in order to find like the precise one that they need in order to execute some of these game plans, man. Like when I see Teofimo Lopez doing it, man, like I see Teofimo Lopez as a very skilled fighter and he's very well rounded, even as an athletic specimen, and he's got some power as well. But whenever he does the shoulder roll, at times I see him get hit with that shit. You know what I mean? Like I want to see a lot more variety, like in these styles, rather than like something that was emulated from someone else.
I agree. I think Tiafimo. I think versus Lomachenko, he's gonna have to pull everything out, and we're gonna see some of that.
For sure, man, for sure. But yo, man, like I saw that debate yesterday, by the way, with Dan versus Jalik about the Tommy Hearns versus Floyd Mayweather thing. And I would have to agree with Dan, like in terms of like the Tommy Hearns thing.
Yeah, I mean, but Jalik was pulling out the wrong comparisons. Like, Philip Love in doubt. You're gonna compare that to Tommy Hearns. I mean, I
Hmm.
just I didn't understand it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Tommy Hearns. I didn't hear the debate, but I would imagine Dan probably leaned toward Tommy Hearns. Am I wrong? Am I right? Or what?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Yep.
Well, yeah. So, yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, Tommy Hearns is kind of one of those once in a generation fighter. I mean, just the way he was built. I mean, the way he competed. I mean, at the end of the day, don't get me wrong, Floyd is one of the best ever. But man, you just gotta. I just would have said, have you ever seen Tommy Hearns fight? Like,
Right. Exactly. That's what that's what we kept saying. And
I mean, dude.
the thing for me is like I saw Floyd get rocked by like Ricky Hatton, Chop Chop, and guys like that. So Tommy Hearns to me is like, you really think Tommy Hearns is not going to land and I mean do damage? I don't know if Floyd could take a crisp 1-2 from Hearns and still be standing and not be knocked out. I mean, I just don't see how he wins. I don't know.
Hmm. Yeah, man. What's up, Chris Reina in the chat? Everybody else, I see, Hamed, that you're gonna jump on later if I'm still on. That's cool. But in terms of the Tommy Hearns thing, man, like if you ask me, Tommy Hearns was like the last legit 5 division world champion. Like from the older fighters. You know what I mean? Like a lot of fighters today, man, like they made a lot of weight classes to the point where like a lot of people don't really respect that idea anymore. Like of the whole idea of multi-weight champions. Like they just want to see an undisputed champion now. But Tommy Hearns moved up like 5 weight classes legitimately, no catch weights or anything like that. Like he's one of the few fighters that could actually do it, and he actually blended well on some of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, without a doubt, man. Without a doubt. I mean, you said it. You just said it perfectly. I mean, at the end of the day, he moved up. He moved up in these weight classes, and you couldn't. Some guys to me, like prime example, like Lomachenko moves up to his last weight class here, and in a sense, he looks like he doesn't really belong there, right? Not
Hmm.
skill wise. I'm just talking about size wise. You understand what I'm saying? He just
Yeah.
looks like, man, these guys might be a little bit too big for Lomachenko, right? But when a guy like, when Hearns moved up, it was a totally different. It looked like he belonged in the weight class. He didn't look small. You know, I mean, it just was his stature, man. He was super duper rangy. I mean, the dude was he was blessed with a lot of God given attributes that allowed him to do the things that he did in boxing, which is amazing. But yeah, man, yeah. I agree with. I didn't hear it, but I would imagine Dan made some pretty solid points in Hearns'
Yeah,
favor.
Dan also mentioned something about the jab of Tommy Hearns, and I agree with him on that one 100%. Like the most key asset for Tommy Hearns if he were to fight somebody like Floyd Mayweather would have been the jab. And people forget how underrated that jab was, man. Like if you ask me, I would have to rate it at least behind Larry Holmes' jab because like he
Yeah.
kept peppering Sugar Ray Leonard with that jab throughout the entire first fight. You know what I mean? Like even on the outside, like he was working him very well there. And Tommy Hearns changes levels, man. Like with that jab and even with like left hooks from long range, like basically he basically had variety. He wasn't just like this like Eastern European guy that just like throws punches to the head like from long range and then like just puts his arms out and tries to clinch or anything like that. No, man, like he actually had some fundamentals behind it, man.
Yeah, Jalik was talking about Hearns like he was a one-dimensional fighter. I just didn't understand that. And then he said that he Floyd would just counter him. So you're gonna let Tommy Hearns just get off first and get into a rhythm, then you don't have a chance in that fight. You know,
But look, mhm,
to beat Hearns, you kind of have to back him up, get him uncomfortable. That's how you beat Hearns. You know what I mean? So I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, you know, like you said, man, this his jab was so good, and I'm gonna tell you why I believe his jab is so good because he threw an up jab, right? So when you throw an up jab, and the reason why he did that was because he would circle the ring going to his left a lot, right? And while he would be circling the ring, he would just flick that jab out there, and it would be extremely stiff. You understand what I'm saying?
oh yeah.
And
That was
then
like the original Kronk jab, man, that people love to talk about. That was where it started.
yeah, I mean, so and then when he wouldn't be circling, he'd throw that up jab, and then he would sit on his punches, and he come with that right hand straight down the pipe. I
Man,
mean,
that was beautiful.
I mean, I mean, it was crazy, and he could throw that jab to your face, to your chest, to your stomach. I mean, he could throw that jab at all different levels, you know. I mean, at the end of the day, he would have been a hard guy to beat. I mean, Floyd Mayweather, I think Floyd Mayweather probably would have had probably a really really difficult time trying to beat Tommy Hearns. I think Floyd has a difficult time beating a lot of those guys from that generation because
Yeah.
all those guys were it was I mean it was a round robin. All those guys could beat one another on any given night. So I mean, at the end of the day, that's when um, you just didn't know who the best was, and that's the kind of boxing I like. Like in the 154-pound weight class now. To me, it's full of talent, and it's one of my favorite weight classes right now because you really don't know who's the best guy, and any of those guys can lose on any given night to anyone, and that's the kind of boxing I enjoy. You know, but at the end of the day, man, we talking about a legend in Tommy Hearns, so I mean, that just is what it is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure, man. What's
to
up, El
me,
Jefe?
Tommy
He's in
had
the chat.
Tommy had a lot of advantages over Floyd as well. The reach, Floyd would have to step into that to land, and then when you got to step in, you're also vulnerable to a counter, and Hearns was a good counter puncher as well.
Mhm.
So, It's just a lot of variables that are to look at, and I would just favor Hearns probably by knockout at some point. Maybe later, maybe 7 rounds or something like that. But I just
Let
got
me
Hearns over Floyd.
Yeah,
let me
here's
ask you
the
a
thing
question.
though about Tommy
Y'all might
Hearns.
know.
Like, mhm.
Look, did they do same day weigh-ins when Hearns was fighting? I'm not a historian, so I don't know that. Did they do same day weigh-ins during that era?
uh, I don't think so. I'm not sure. Because
Let
I
me let
did
me look
hear
that up.
some. Mhm.
Look that up because I'm curious about that because that plays a major factor in it as well. But go ahead, carry on, Dex.
Yeah, like the thing about Floyd Mayweather, man, I'll give him a little bit of a benefit in this like Tommy Hearns fight. And the only thing that he could have going for him in this one, man, like that I could see being like a valid argument for him to win like some rounds is the jab to the body, believe it or not. Because he was good at throwing the jab to the body.
Yeah, they
But
they
my
they did have it.
mhm,
Yeah, it was same day weigh-ins.
yeah,
Yeah.
I thought it was same day weight. I mean, so so hold on. So this to me, this is the point right here that people is definitely gonna be missing. I thought they did same day weigh-ins. So imagine Tommy Hearns fighting Floyd Mayweather, and he gets a full. Oh, he gets more than 24 hours to rehydrate. Man, that's dude. That's how much bigger do you think he would be on fight night? I mean, that'd be bananas, dude. Like, who? Like, come on, man. That's crazy, man. That's like to me, that's a missing piece that nobody is really discussing right now. Those guys did same
mhm.
day weigh-ins, man. I mean, imagine Hearns doing the same day weigh-in against Floyd Mayweather. I mean, all the IVs, Floyd, it wouldn't have mattered. I'm just telling you, all that stuff would not have mattered, dude. This dude would have came in there and looked like a damn middleweight. You know what I'm saying? It's crazy, man.
Yeah, man. Like the thing about Tommy Hearns, man, like I mean, Floyd Mayweather is he never fought anyone with like a longer reach or yeah, the longer reach than him. And I would have loved to seen that, even if it was a guy that was like a different style than like a Tommy Hearns, like a Paul Williams. And like even though Floyd would have not have fought the same game plan that we think he would fight Tommy Hearns, man, like it still would have given us an idea of like how Floyd would come on the inside, like a guy that's like that much taller than him and longer than him.
Well, Oscar De La Hoya was taller and had more reach than him, right? And Floyd at points would just stay on the ropes and try to roll and whatnot off the
I
ropes.
don't think he was the arm length, man. Like the thing about the reach, like back then HBO used to have a thing where they showed the arm length instead of like the reach overall, like it would say like 23, 24. You might be onto something with De La Hoya, man, like in terms of the arm length, because I remember seeing that Floyd does have a longer reach than Oscar De La Hoya, but I can't remember the arm length for that fight.
Well, Oscar's is 73 and Floyd's is 72. So I mean,
73,
it's like an inch. Let me actually look up Hearns. I feel like it's like almost 80 or something.
It's 78, 78 and a half or something like that.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
So I mean, how
Good
is
God,
Little
man.
Floyd?
78 and a half, dude. It's like
Jesus.
that's like going in the heavyweight territory as far as range, being the range you got, right? I
That's like
mean,
Muhammad Ali's reach, man.
yeah, exactly. I mean, I think he's got a longer reach than Andy Ruiz.
Oh man.
Wow.
That's crazy, man. I mean, that's serious, man. Dude, that's out of control, man. 78 and a half, almost 80. Dude, that's crazy. Jared Washington, Shannon Briggs has 80 inch. Jared Washington, Shannon Briggs has 80-inch reach. I mean, and these guys' arms these guys got long arms, man. You
And
know,
we
Luis Ortiz has a 78-inch reach.
yeah, and we're
That's
surprised that
insane.
Jared Hurd has like a 77 reach, man. But look at Tommy Hearns at welterweight.
Yeah, that's fucking insane, man. Floyd's gonna have to get on the inside of that and then be wary of counters on top of that. And Hearns has quick hands too. It's not like he's just a slow, flat-footed, trotting, one-dimensional fighter that I guess was being described versus Floyd yesterday. That's why I didn't understand the whole discussion. Like, I don't know, man.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
I'm biased. I'm gonna be honest with you. I would have got frustrated with that because I'd have been like, man, you couldn't have seen Hearns fight. I mean, when people start talking like foolish, just like flat footed, and I'm like, this is a waste of my time. I get frustrated with people like that.
Oh my
Not saying,
God, did somebody say that he was flat-footed?
yeah,
No,
not
no,
saying,
no. He didn't describe. He didn't say flat-footed, but the way he was describing him as a fighter was like he was just a one-dimensional fighter, which I just didn't get. I didn't get that. And then he was kept saying he had a bad chin because Marvin Hagler knocked him out. And then he was comparing Hagler's power to G-Man and Julian Jackson, saying Hagler didn't have the great power. I'm like, bro, that's a whole different weight class. Then he said Floyd could fight like James Toney and he would beat Hearns because James Toney and Hearns didn't spar because they didn't want to spar. I'm like, what logic? Where are we going with this shit? I just
well, Hagler's probably my favorite out of all those guys. Because he was always the one that was underestimated because he wasn't the most. He didn't look like he was the most skillful, and he just was a hard nosed, grind out kind of guy that did what he needed to do to get the job done. He was always the one that was underestimated out of all the top guys, and he always prevailed. So at the end of the day, I kind of, I got, Hagler has a special place in my boxing heart. So,
Hmm. Yeah, he's the working man's champion and
yeah, there you go,
throughout
man.
the
That's it
world.
right there.
Hmm. Yeah, man. Marvin Hagler, Sugar Ray Leonard, Tommy Hearns, Roberto Duran, all them guys, man, they were real good. And even Sweet Pea, man, like I thought he probably would have competed in that era, but eventually he would kind of like lose some of those fights. But I'm not too sure because like we'll never know what would happen. You know what I mean? But one thing that I like about Sweet Pea was that he had some fundamentals to fall back on whenever he had to. Like he fought a guy named Maromero Pais, and he was the only thing he did. Like he wasn't fighting him the same way he did against Oscar De La Hoya or most of the other opponents he fought. Like he was actually more on the offense than on the defense.
you're talking about Jorge Pies.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He whooped on that dude.
Hmm.
Oscar beat him too. I feel like, didn't he?
Well, a lot of people thought that Purnell won, but
Oh
then
no,
some
not
other people.
Purnell. Jorge Pias. Didn't Oscar
Oh,
fight him too?
I think so. Yeah, I think he stopped him or something like that. Or oh man, I can't even remember.
Oh, Smoke says in the chat that Jalik's main point was Mayweather was too smart for Hearns.
Hmm. I mean, Floyd Mayweather is a very intelligent fighter, man. But in terms of the styles, man, we just gotta put the styles into consideration. That Tommy Hearns is, like Floyd Mayweather never fought anybody like Tommy Hearns, with that stature, with that skill set, with that power. Like it's just a combination of things, you know what I mean? But I get what Jalik was saying on that live stream, like that sometimes people underestimate Floyd Mayweather's intelligence, but uh we can't underestimate Tommy Hearns' chances, you know what I mean?
Well,
And how
when
good
he
he was.
right, exactly. There you go. Because when he says,
Yeah,
"Oh, Floyd was so smart and Hearns wouldn't have a chance," because he brings this up. He said, "How smart is
Hmm.
Hearns?" Because he moved up to middleweight and decided to shoot it out with Hagler. That's not smart. Well, he doesn't act. I don't feel like he actually watched that fight because Hagler forced that pace on Hearns. It wasn't Hearns' decision. Like Hagler came and brought it to him, and Hearns got him hurt in that fight. So it's just he's not really giving Hearns a fair shake when it comes to ring IQ. I don't think he's like noticing the stuff Hearns does in the ring. I actually question if he's watched Hearns fight, because he's just not, he doesn't throw single shots. He's a great combination puncher, great body work, um, and he has quick hands. And his feints, his setups, they're beautiful to watch. So I don't know. He has a good ring IQ. Now, if you want to say Floyd adapts better than Hearns, that's fine. But we're comparing the two in a fight. The intangibles of Hearns is why I think Hearns beats Floyd. You know what I'm saying? We're not comparing resume, who has a better ring IQ, because ring IQ doesn't always win fights.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
no,
sometimes
I agree.
resumes don't even come into consideration. Sometimes, you know what I mean? Like, the better man just wins. It's just like when Iran Barkley beat Tommy Hearns. Iran Barkley doesn't have like a better legacy than Tommy Hearns, but he still beat him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, at the end of the day, man, this is why these kind of conversations are so kind of, you know, a merry-go-round, because at the end of the day, you can make a lot of good points for each fighter. But, as Unbiased has mentioned, stuff like resume and ring IQ, you know, a lot of that stuff can't really be gauged. So you have to just go based off the tangible, assets that each fighter has. When I just break each fighter down and I say what they do good and what they do bad, just how much of a physical specimen they are when they're in the ring. um I just have to lean towards Hearns in that regard, right? But at the end of the day, Floyd Mayweather was, yeah, he's probably one of the most adaptable fighters to ever live. I give him that without a doubt. I think he's one of the smartest fighters to ever live. I give him that as well. But I don't know. The smartest thing he could do is, if he had a chance to fight Hearns back then, he'd probably just say, "Nah, I'm gonna pass on this one."
Yo, but Phil, that's a fact. He would just pass on that. He passed on Winky. You know what I'm saying? He passed on Winky. He passed on Paul Williams. So I mean, if Tommy Hearns in his prime, I don't think Floyd Mayweather Sr. would even allow Junior to fight Hearns, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What do you
he's
guys think
always been
about
super
this right here?
selective.
Hmm.
My bad,
Yeah,
Jason. Go ahead.
it's all good. What do you guys think about this comment right here by Chris Reina? He said, if Floyd fought back then, I think he would have stayed longer at 135 and 140. I don't think he would have fought at 147 back in the day. Who did we have at 135 and 140 pounds? I know we had
Durant.
Aaron Pryor and
Durant.
Durant.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Would Floyd be a champion then? I don't know about that.
Man,
Yeah, I
when I
think
think of Aaron
I think
Pryor,
30.
man, oh man, that's a
Uh,
nasty fight. Hmm. Go ahead, Phil.
Chris brings up a good point. But even
Hmm.
even the 140 was tough. I mean, man, I think a lot of the divisions back then was super duper loaded. At the end of the day, I think Floyd is, of course, now that he's done, he's definitely in a class of his own. But at the end of the day, Floyd was light years above his talent pool during his tenure in boxing, versus a lot of those guys during that tenure were really, really close in talent level and just overall skill. That's why I think Floyd gets so much praise, because he was so much better than everyone during his particular generation, right? And he was so selective about who he fought. And, at the end of the day, he has a great, great resume, great legacy. Um, versus, these guys, they were more active, for one. So a lot of times these guys would have to fight one another, versus Floyd being super selective on who he fights and when he fights, and how he decides to fight them with these kind of gloves or these kind of gloves, or just all kind of stuff went into it. It wasn't all of that kind of stuff going on back then. You understand what I'm saying? So I think, you know, the amount of times that they fought one another plays a major factor into the scenario as well. Just think about it. If Floyd fought 3 times a year like these guys are fighting, your chances increase on you likely to lose against a guy who's just as good as you, right? But you know, I'm done with that rant, man. I'm done with it, dude. I love Floyd, man. He's one of the best ever. But at the end of the day, I don't like to cross generations, and this is the reason why. Because we can go back and forth with this. But it is what it is, man. You only judge based on your talent pool during your particular generation, and that's that is what it is.
Yeah. Get the Smoke says Dan made that argument that Mayweather was smart enough to duck Hearns. Yeah, man. I mean, it's very possible, you had Aaron Pryor, you had like a lot of people at 140 pounds and at 135 pounds, man. Like those would have been some tough fights, believe it or not, just for anybody, not just Floyd, man. Just because we say that Floyd is gonna have a tough fight with somebody like a Tommy Hearns, that's Tommy Hearns, man, not just somebody, man. Like these are all-time greats that we're comparing them to. So whether he wins or loses, it really shouldn't matter like who it is to. You know what I mean? Because like those are some tough style matchups for certain fighters. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
good. It's just good boxing talk. It's not like we're gonna ever be able to see this, right? It's just somebody giving praise to really, in a sense, both fighters, because again, we're discussing an all-time great boxing match, right? So nobody's trying to down one guy. Nobody's trying to say that one guy's better than the other one. Guys are just matching them up stylistically and just giving their opinions. I don't want, I know a lot of people take stuff personal, but at the end of the day, that conversation is made to give both guys, their praise and their reward. So that's just the way I feel about it, right?
Right. The only reason we're comparing the two is because we think both are great enough to be, to get in the ring with each other.
Yep. Do you guys think that Floyd would have done the same thing to Duran that Sugar Ray did? Personally, for me, I don't think so. I actually think it would be a closer fight, depending, it all depends on the weight class that it takes place in, because let's not underestimate Floyd at 135 pounds either, man, because he was a great fighter in those weight classes.
Yeah,
At
but
even
Duran was a
140.
beast. He was a
Yeah,
beast.
Duran too.
He was a beast at those lower weights. Actually, when he moved up in weight, he kind of regressed a bit. When he was at those smaller weights, he was like a monster. So I don't know. That'll be a tougher fight for Floyd. And we saw like Jose Castillo, in my opinion, win against Floyd. And Duran is to me is like a way better fighter than Jose Castillo. Just more tricks of the
Hmm.
trade. And I thought the first fight Duran beat Leonard, and the second fight was a close fight. I don't know why Duran quit because he was it was close. I don't know why he quit in that fight, but he did. But at the lower weights, yeah, that's a tough ass fight for Floyd.
Yeah,
Hey, I
and
gotta jump off real quick. I'll be back in a few minutes.
already, man.
All right.
Listening.
So I
Yeah,
mean, yeah, I think it's a tough fight for Floyd, but it's possible. It's possible that Floyd could. I think that would be his best uh, chance to beat one of the three is possibly Duran because stylistically that would fit more so to what Floyd can do. You know what I'm
and
saying?
it
But
also depends on the weight class as well, because like Duran, even saying Duran might be like the only person that Floyd could beat is a tall task. You know what I mean?
right, I agree. I agree, man. I agree. Hey, did you see what Lomachenko said about fighting Devin Haney and Teofimo Lopez?
Oh, what did he say, man?
Yeah, he said, he can't wait to see Teofimo Lopez's father's and his reaction after they lose. Like he can't wait to see their faces. And he said to Devin Haney that we can get it going. You know what I'm saying? After he beats Teofimo. So apparently he wants to smoke with Devin Haney apparently too. So I mean,
Oh man,
that's
yeah.
crazy.
The first part sounded sadistic to me. How he just wants to like hurt Teofimo psychologically or some shit, man. That's crazy, man. And Devin Haney, believe it or not, man, I know a lot of people are probably gonna get on me for this, but I think Haney has a chance against Lomachenko, but it all depends, like because Lomachenko's experience could take over, but I think Devin Haney is a critical thinker in there, and I think he does things right. Like he's not just some guy that does something and he's just gonna stick to it. Like he's a very fluid fighter that could change his game plan on the fly. When something is not working, he's gonna be like, "Fuck it, I'm not just gonna go for this anymore, man. Like I gotta make some type of adjustment." But then again, I also understand like the arguments for someone picking Lomachenko as well, man. Like in terms of him beating Devin Haney based on the experience and the footwork as well, which is why I can understand someone picking him against Teofimo Lopez. But those are some tough fights for him, man. I'm not gonna lie. Not just because of the skill aspect, but also because of the size and power thing. And it's like we said before, like in the chat, like the hangouts, that the left hook is gonna be a key factor for Teofimo Lopez. Certain punches, certain aspects like that.
Yep, I agree. Definitely that that would be the punch I could see landing on Lomachenko is the left hook. He's had problems with that. But I actually have Teofimo winning versus Loma, by KO. I think you heard me say that before. But Devin Haney,
Hmm.
I think that's like I think it's a different fight because that'd be like more so a battle of the wits, like who's more
Yeah,
intelligent in the ring. So I think Loma has the experience to kind of edge that one out. Plus, I've never, like Phil said before, as much as I am high on Devin Haney, I'm also realistic. I need to see him in the ring with somebody that's like high level for me to really
yeah,
gauge
like
him.
he's into too many finesse fights. Like he's not like presented himself in a fight where like he has to go life and death. You know what I mean?
Right, exactly. And I think that's actually hurting him right now. And to throw him in there with Loma right at this moment, I don't think that'd be too smart. You know what I'm saying? I don't think that's intelligent to do. He still has a lot more to prove. So if he could do that,
Yeah,
fight a Fortuna. I saw an article today saying that he's now petitioning with the WBC so he can actually fight a Luke Campbell or a Fortuna so he can get his belt back by fighting them. So give me 1 second. I'm gotta do something
yeah.
real quick.
Hmm. But yeah, man, like the whole thing about Devin Haney, like me picking Devin Haney somewhat comes from like a gambling perspective because I like to pick the underdogs a lot frequently. But I also understand that Lomachenko has a lot of experience. Now that I think about it, a couple months back, I was very sure about Devin Haney beating someone like Lomachenko, but it all depends, like on how Devin Haney gains some type of experience before facing him. Like I would like to see him fight Javier Fortuna. I just mentioned that in the last live stream, and I would like to see him in a lot more fights where he's battle proven rather than just coming in there just like gonna fight a finesse fight. He can't be fighting some type of finesse fight against someone like Lomachenko at this point of his career. He really needs to add something to his game from a physical aspect as well. Like he needs a proper balance, in my opinion. But yeah, man. Let me see the comments. Um, you don't think much of Lomachenko at 135 or Devin Haney? Well, yeah. I mean, Lomachenko, man, like I think that weight class is a little bit too much for him, like in terms of the physical aspect. Skill wise, well, I mean, he's had some success skill wise, but like when someone gets past it, like they could possibly give him some issues. Like personally, I would have loved to have seen him stay at 130 pounds and fight like somebody like Miguel Berchelt and some other champions that I forgot that was there. I was gonna say Gervonta Davis, but I don't see that fight happening anytime soon. So yeah, man, like I don't know about that one. But Devin Haney, well, yeah, I mean that's subjective, like with how Devin Haney is at this weight class. Some people are saying that he's gonna move up to 140 pounds, so I'm not so sure like if he's gonna be there for long. And the same with Teofimo Lopez. Like most of these guys at 135 pounds are probably gonna be at 147 by the time they're at like the peak of their careers. Whether they're in their late 20s or early 30s, like they're gonna end up there eventually. You know what I mean? So we're just gonna see how this works out. Miguel Berchel would have worked him, I think. Yeah, I mean, Miguel, he has a very tough style to beat. Like he's a very good boxer. Like, and he's very battle proven. And when I say he's a good boxer, I look at the fights with Takashi Miura and even the Mickey Roman fights. Like I saw a lot of improvement when he fought Francisco Vargas again in that rematch. Like he was boxing a lot more, like he was getting hit a lot less, but still, man, like I would like to see him fight like one of the other champions, like Unify with Jamel Herring or oh man, it's been a while since I've seen that 130-pound weight class. I gotta think of the other champions that were there. Like the belts have been changing a lot recently. Have you ever watched the Lomachenko and Salido fight? Yep, yep. And I actually thought that Salido won legitimately. Like Lomachenko took that fight way too early in his career, and he had to pay the price for it. Salido is just like one of those veterans, man. You look back at the Juanma Lopez fights, you don't put in your fighters with those type of guys that early in your career, man. Otherwise you're gonna end up putting them in a serious world of trouble. Like recently, I remember seeing Robesi Ramirez, or I think that's his name, the gold medalist that beat Shakur Stevenson in the last Olympics, and he lost his debut fight. I mean, against the guy that had already had some losses on him. So it's insane. You know what I mean? See right here. But yeah, man, it's getting a lot more crazier day by day. Talking about the sport of boxing, like the only thing that's only relegated to in these forums are like debates and all of that stuff. The only thing y'all can talk about is like history, old fights from the past, fantasy fights. But when I talk about all of these fights, man, like I talk about it from like a martial philosophy perspective. I believe that too. Salila was mixing it up a lot, switching lead combos and took Loma to school. Yep, I agree. I agree, man. But yeah, man, like in terms of when I talk about boxing, I talk about it from like a martial philosophy perspective. And when I say a martial philosophy perspective, like I talk about like the whole mentality that sinks into it. Like it's almost as if fighters need to be in sync with their mind in order like to perform all of this kind of stuff. I mean, we've heard of how important the mental game is in boxing, but this is like a universal thing in terms of like sports in general, like combat sports. And I've noticed that a lot more frequently that it's a study that most fighters need to understand. It's almost as if like you need some type of ego in order to perform at the top level. You need some type of a persona. You need to be insane in the mind, believe it or not, in order to perform the way that these most of these fighters do. So yeah. Texan, how long are you gonna be on live? I was actually thinking about logging off right now, man, because I think I already said my piece and I'm already going into an hour. And I heard like StreamYard is starting to put some restrictions. So on all of these like live uh shows and stuff like that, like on a limit on the hours and everything like that. So I'll tune into your next live, man. Let me already log off. All right, guys. Thank you for coming on. Thank you to the chat for whoever was in it. El Jefe, Chris Reina, Hamed, Unbiased, Get the Smoke. All of you guys. I appreciate it. And we'll catch you on the next one. Peace.